Alright, hello guys, welcome to the new edition of this particular YouTube channel, Mr. Ade Ayo Bet Predict. In today's video, I'm going to show you guys the reason why the inconsistency in basketball always occur, and this often leads to, you know, lost in some basketball prediction, even if you use the most accurate strategy. In basketball, there are some times that we always have what we call playoff, and sometimes that we always have the league games. Now I'm going to show you guys how you can recognize the league games. If you are selecting and doing your analysis from your bet platform, you may not be able to see this very well, and you may be able to see it easily. So these are the two things that you need to look out for if you want to predict your basketball strategy. Now the first game that I will be using as an example is under the Italia Serie Italy league. Okay. So we have the match between the Olympia Milano and Virtus Bologna. Now this is what you are going to do. Let's assume that you are not using your bet platform to check the start of these two teams, but you are using your maybe your live score checking app. Anyone that you have, you are using it, and you want to check the last previous game so that you can determine the possible outcome of the game. Now this is what you are going to do. You just have to check their head to head. So now this is where you are going to know that okay, this particular game is what you can predict or you can stake your games on. Now if you check it very well, you are going to see what we call draw. It means maybe probably they are playing something like kind of a tournament, and they've played a particular match before this. Now checking their head to head, you are going to see that their consistency is not there. For example, checking this particular game, the match ended up at 72 and 64, and by adding these together you are getting 136. Now if you check most of their previous games, they've been playing at least maybe probably 160, 150 and something like that, and it got to this particular point they played 136. Now let us check if probably the match they played is a league game or a tournament like game, because most times you always have something like this which is a playoff. So this match ended up as 72-64, and let's check. Probably they are using standing or draw. So unfortunately, this is a draw. So it's a draw match, like a tournament match. So guys, games like this, always try your best to avoid it, because naturally in basketball, consistency is not there because it deals with points, and anything can happen, anything can affect these particular trends in their outcome. Now let's see. So you cannot always win your basketball games. There is always a reason why. Checking this particular point too, we have 77 and 66 here, and adding this together, probably we'll be getting maybe 143. Okay, let's check for the away team too. Okay, for the away team, we also have only this particular game also made it to be like they played 130 something, and I'm very sure people that played games on this particular match that day, I'm very sure most of them will lost. So bookies, they always smile and they are always happy when audience, like when their customers play basketball sometimes, because of the inconsistency in the match. So let me show you something that you guys can do in order to avoid all these problems. Now please, I want you guys to pay very good and close attention to details in this particular video. Now we are going to start. The first step that you need to do is to look for games that are not something like this, maybe probably playoff, that are not tournaments like maybe draw, that will be like okay, from final, semi-final, quarter final. We are avoiding games like that in this particular analysis. Now let's start looking for games that are maybe probably their leagues. Now let's go. So now let's look for games that are not something like that. Okay, they've played this one already, but I want you guys to check something about this too. So this particular game also happens to be a draw game, a playoff, so something like. So if you notice very well, games like this, they often play against each other maybe after 2 days, because let's check, this is where you will know. So if you check it very well, you can see that the distance of the date is not that far. They played a particular match on June 10 and they played another one 13. So they play consecutively. They play. So just make sure that you always avoid games like this. And if you're unable to pick games in a day because of this particular issue, make sure that you avoid it. It is better not to lose your money than to play games in a day and lose your money. So uh please make use of this particular advice very well. Now let's look for games that we can go for. Okay, they've played these games already. Okay, unfortunately, this particular match happens to be something like a playoff games too. Let's check another one. Let's go for Colombia. Actually, they've played most of this particular match. I think this should be a normal league match. That is whereby we are going to be having their standings. But let's check others. So most of the games that we are having currently are commonly playoff games, and unfortunately, those ones that they are yet to be playoff have played their matches already. All right, no problem. Let us just look straight into some of the games that they've played already so that we can quickly uh, end these particular steps. Now let's go for okay, Colombia. Okay, so now this is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to apply my method of predicting my basketball games. This is how I pick my, whenever I want to pick a game on basketball, I'm going to show you guys the steps. Actually, it can be stressful or tiring, and that is why picking games is not that very easy. There are some people that always instruct you to help them to pick games, maybe probably two or big odds, different odds like that. So I'm going to show you the reason why this thing is not that always very easy if you are applying statistical method and you are not using emotion to predict your games. Now these are the steps that you need to do. Let us pick, okay, let's say, okay, this particular match ended up as 94 and 79. Now this is a league game, and checking it is standing. You can see the position of the two teams. Both of them are one is number one and the other is number two on the league table. Now these are the kind of games that I will always advise you guys to always go for because of their consistency. Now go to their head to head. That is where you are going to check their last previous games and the games that they've played against each other. And the things that you need to look into, the first thing that I always look into is the form of the teams that I want to predict their games on. So checking their last 5 games, I always check that at least they must have 60% of form. So how will you get the 60% of form out of the last 5 games that they've played against other teams, and the last 5 games for both home and away, the last 5 games that they've played with other teams? At least if you want to calculate the percentage of their form, probably out of the last 5, pick 3 out of it. 3 out of the last 5 games must ended up as the team winning the match. That is, they must have 3 wins out of the last 5 games. So let's check for this home team. So this is the result of the current. This is the current result, and let us check the last 5 games. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So out of these 5, we have 3 that ended up as the home team winning this particular match. So we have 1, 2, 3. They won 3 out of their last 5 games. That is 60%. Now, so 60%, 80%, 100% are the percentage of form that you guys need to focus on at least, which means they must have won at least 3 games out of the last 5 games with other teams. Now we are going to make use of the media method. This particular method that I want to teach you guys happens to be one of my favorite method that I teach people only on our YouTube membership, but I'm going to show you guys the steps in this particular video. I just want you guys to pay very good close attention to it, and if you have any questions or maybe you don't understand some steps, kindly make sure that you drop it in the comment section. I might have made the steps before in this particular channel. You guys can also just keep studying and keep understanding it. Now this is another thing that you need to look at. So this particular team, they are qualified for us to check their average points in the last 5 games with other teams. Now let's check. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So these are the last 5 games. Okay. Now the media method. This is what I do. So I check their two biggest points they had in the last 5 games and the two smallest points they had in the last 5 games. So we have 78 here, we have 70 here, we have 78, we have 70, and we have 77. Now you have to remove the two smallest. Let us check. We have our 70 and 70. Now let us remove the two biggest. We have 78 and 78. So the middle point, that is the one that is not too big and not too small, happens to be 77. So for the home team, the average point that we've gotten in the last 5 games with other teams happens to be 77 points. Now let's check. Let's check for the away team. Please, I believe you guys are noting this particular point down, and let's see. So let's check for the away team. So in the last 5 games of the away team also, we must have at least 3 matches that they won, as you know, they won it. So fortunately we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the last 5 games, and they won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think probably they went to overtime in the last in 2 out of it, but at least they won 3 normally. So this is why betting can, sport betting can be funny sometimes. Imagine teams that is currently 100% form, they lost to a team that is currently 60% form. So it happens when you are predicting who to win a particular match in basketball and even in football. But everything is everything, sha. Now let us apply the same method of our median statistics to the away team also. Now we have they played 81 here, they played 81, they played 96, they played 89, and they played 95. But actually what I do most times is that in a situation whereby we are having overtime, what you guys are seeing on the screen, which they wrote AOT, it means uh overtime. Maybe they played draw on their regular time and they went on to additional time to decide on who won the match. Now when we're having a situation whereby we're having something like overtime, most times I always removed the point of the overtime and make use of the point of the regular time, but not to waste our time. I'm just going to go on with this available data that we have, and I'm going to explain to you guys straight so that you can understand it very well. Now let us pick the median figure. We have 81 here, as you guys can see it on the screen. We have 81. So we are removing the two biggest and the two smallest. So currently the two biggest is 95 and 96. So we are removing the two smallest, which is 81 and 81. So the middle point that we are currently having happens to be 89. Now I believe you guys are jotting 89. Don't forget, for the home team we had 77 as their middle point, and for the away team we had 89 for their middle point. So actually on a normal base, I if I want to predict who to win this particular game, I would have gone for the away team. But unfortunately, here is the outcome that you guys are seeing on the screen. They had 79. So it happens in betting very well, very, very well. So make sure that you always go for something like over points and under points when you want to predict your basketball. And if you want to predict, go for straight winning. It is mostly based on luck. Now let us move on to the next chapter. By adding this particular 77 and 89 together. Now let's make use of our calculator before we decide. So now the average point that we are having after adding the middle point of the home team and the away team together is currently 166. So this is the average point of the figures that we should be expecting after for their last previous games with other teams. Now you don't need to stop there, because you need to also check other factors like their last previous games. We only check the last previous games that they had with other teams, which gave us 166. Now let us move on to check the last previous games, because that's where we are going to know what they've been playing against each other for the past 3 games that they've had. So this is their head to head, that is the last 5 games that they've played with against each other, and we are going to check the middle points for both home and away here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the last 5 games. Now let us pick the middle point for the home team. So they had 78 here, they had 65, they had 59, they had 76, and they had 82. Now let us pick the smallest and the biggest. Let us first remove the two biggest. We have 82 here and we have 78. So these are the two biggest. So now let us remove the two smallest. We have 65 and we have 59. So the middle point that we are currently picking is 76. Now we have 76 as the middle point. Now let us check for the away team. So for the away team, we are checking. They had 81 here, they had 68, they had 70, they had 73, and they had 85. Now let us first remove the two biggest points. They had 85 here, let us remove it. They had 81 here, we'll remove it. Now let us remove the two smallest points again. We have 68 and we have 70. Now the middle point for the away team happens to be 73. 73. So now this we have 76 and 73. Don't forget in the last previous game that they had, and after checking their median average point, the total point there happens to be 166. But now checking the average point that they've played together, there happens to be teams that they don't really score big points like that every time. Checking their last previous games, except in the last six, whereby they had 96 and 95 and 86. So this shows that in basketball, it is a game that is very, it is interesting when you find it very interesting when you are playing it, but it is a very risky game to play because of their lack of consistency. Imagine teams that are having 95 and 86 here, having 68 and 65 or 70 and 59 years. So that is how betting is when it comes to basketball sometimes. But now let us move on with the steps that we are using in predicting this. So don't forget, in the last 5 games that they've played with other teams, after adding the median points of both teams, we had 166 as the average point for both. Now checking their last previous games against each other, we can see that we have 76 for the home team and 73 for the away team. So adding these two figures together, we are getting 149. Now, here is another thing that I always do if I want to predict my games. For your save, like if you happen to be someone that likes to play your games as a save games, I always subtract certain figures from my average point, because this average point happens to give you only insight of what you should be expecting. It is not like exactly what will come out. It will only give you an insight of, okay, this is the range of possible outcome of the game. So that is the purpose of the average point analysis that we are doing. Now if you want to predict under, I always apply this strategy on big figures. Now I want to predict over and I want my games to be safe. I will always subtract a certain figures from it. Most times I always subtract 10 points. That is if I want to predict games for people. But if I want to stake personally, that I want to risk games, maybe I want to risk some games, I always leave it as a median point. Now let us make our decision on which average point we are going to use. Now when you want to predict over points, we have 166 as the average point for against other teams, and we have 149 for their last against each other in the last 5 games. Now between these two, it is obvious that 149 happens to be the smallest. So I'm picking 149 as my average, you know, as my average point, 149. So naturally, there are two ways that I use to predict basketball. Since I picked 149 as my average point, either I subtract 10 from it, or I subtract 5 from it, or I leave it like that as 149. That means I will predict the game as 149 directly. That is if I want to risk the game. But if I want to play safe, I will subtract 10 points from it. Subtracting 10 points from 149, surely what you are going to be getting is 139. So I just go straight by predicting the game as 139. So that's how I play safe, when you want to be having consistent winning in basketball. But there are some situations whereby, I told you already that no strategy will always give you 100% accuracy. So just make sure that you stake responsibly. And please take note of these points. Now imagine these particular games, the result that we are having here. We are having 94 and 79. Imagine you predicted the game as over 166, which happens to be the average point that they've been having against other teams. You would have won this particular game. And let's assume that you predicted it in a safe form, that is based on the average points, the smallest average point that we had, which is 149, you would have won. And if you are subtracted 10 from it that you want to play safe, you would have won. So everything is, that's how basketball works. It fluctuates, so you have to be on a safer side. Now here is the reason why I said you guys should not always go for who to win a basketball games. When you are doing analysis of a basketball stats and you want to predict the game as who to win this particular match, it can be confusing. Only the bookmakers have accurate insight about that, because look at it very well. A team that is having 60% from, they lost last two games with other teams, and the point they had there happens to be 70 and 78. Imagine. Now compare it to a team that is, in their last 5 games they've been winning, and the point that they've been having happens to be around 80 points, and like that. And checking the last previous games that they've had against each other, at least out of their 9 games, they've won 5 out of it, and some ended up as a draw, like this. And the home team happens to have won just, I think, 3. Imagine. And the game ended up as the home team winning. Now let me now show you something that will surprise you. The bookmakers are assigning, they assigned a very small odd to a team that is not really informed compared to that of the away team, and they've been losing in their last 5 games against the team that is currently informed, and the bookmakers are offering an odd of 1.20 something odd for that. Imagine. And checking the stats, you can see that the home team is not a team that's supposed or that is expected to win this particular game. So definitely they always have in-depth research. They have, I don't know how they do it. When they assign odds, they always have a full details of information about the teams that are playing. So that is how it works. Please, if you have any question concerning this particular strategy or advice or steps, make sure you drop it in the comment section. And if you have any question that you want us to answer, just make sure you drop it in the comment section. And don't forget to like our video. If you are just joining us, make sure you subscribe to this particular channel. Subscribe and click on the ring bell so that you'll be getting the notification whenever we drop any video on this particular channel. See you guys in the next video. Bye.